Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Sex, Lies, and Consciousness with your luscious hostess, May Vu, broadcasting live every Monday at 12 noon Pacific Time.
Hello, everyone. This is May Vu, and today I have such a wonderful, amazing topic to bring. It's about food and favorite things on the planet. Well, food, sex, and maybe shopping too. Anyway, I hadn't really paid much attention to food and sex because my only connection is when I eat too much, my stomach gets so fat I don't feel like having sex. That's as far as I go. But Pat Baroni, my guest today, she contacted me and said, you know, the show on food and sex, and we started talking, and it was fascinating. So I'm so excited to have Pat here with me, and we are going to talk about this, see the connection, and learn about it. So a few words about Pat. Pat is a master certified coach. He's been working with clients since 2002. Food addiction issues and gained large amounts repeatedly before finally losing 92 pounds. Sounds like a lot of it. And she had sustained that weight loss for over 12 years, making her, get this, one of the accomplishments. Pat credits her success to her own persistence and her commitment to do whatever it takes to change. She found a lot of connection between the subject of addiction. I think we don't talk about addiction enough, actually. And Pat has worked with her clients extensively in this area, too. Welcome, Pat.
Hi, May. How are you?
I'm really excited about this subject and for us to dive into here because it is, to be honest, it really is new to me, and so I can't wait to experience my own consciousness rising on this subject.
Yes. Well, you made a very important comment when you said that you've noticed that when you eat too much, you don't feel sexual. That's a huge key right there.
Is it? What?
Yeah.
Other than physical discomfort, what are you pointing to us to?
Well, I think that there's so many ways, there's so many connections between food and sex, but we often use food to temper our sexuality, to control it, or to tamp it down, or to hide from it. I mean, it's right there in the belly with all of your sexual energy is all of your digestive works as well. So there's a huge connection, the second chakra, between those two energies.
Yeah, it's just the like for me, it's like I feel really cumbersome and you know, fat or unattractive and sluggish. Like I don't feel like having sex. Like getting on a man and riding him, you know, when I'm just like bloated and all that.
No, that takes all of your energy, you know. All your energy is going toward the food and not toward, you know, expressing your sexual energy at all. It's like two pathways.
Yeah. Well, let us slow down because, see, I'm so anxious about wanting to understand this. I'm already diving into that. But let's give them a little more connection to you personally, you know. So tell us a little bit about your story, Pat. Like, what were you like when you were younger and fatter? You know, what's that whole journey like? And then and then your breakthrough or where you are now.
Well, you know, I started to notice. I always had a food addiction. I always had problems with, you know, dieting and excess weight. And I would say that I first started to be aware of this connection when I was in college. I noticed that when I was in a relationship, my weight seemed fairly stable. And when I was single, I was yo-yoing a lot. I was getting really into gaining weight, and then I would get on these drastic diets and lose weight. And my feelings were pinging all over the place about it. And my feelings were on a constant roller coaster about myself, very much dependent on my weight at the time and how I looked. And so it was something that I started to clue into at that point.
Yeah, so let's slow that down a little bit more. So what was the mental mind like, when you were single and that got you to ping pong with weight? Like, was there some extra pressure about looking good or something to get a date or something that started? What?
I would notice that I would, if I, for instance, felt attracted to someone, I would start to experience a lot of pressure and stress about being rejected. I always felt inadequate, and I didn't know in those days. I look back and I feel a lot of compassion for myself at that point because I didn't understand that my inadequacy was running all of this. I felt inadequate because I wasn't the perfect shape or size. I felt inadequate because I was kind of shy. And but rather than take a risk in a relationship, a lot of times I would hide in food. I would sabotage dating. I would overeat and not go on a date or cancel a date if I was feeling a lot of pressure about it. I just used food to sort of tamp down my feelings because I was under this inadequacy umbrella where I really did feel like I was always constantly going to fail. I was not going to measure up somehow. And so that theme kind of developed in my life of hiding in fat. And I would go in and out of it, and I would go to it to hide. I didn't want my sexuality seen. Fat does obscure a lot of your shape. It obscures your sexual regions. Yeah. And so I know a lot of people who own their bodies when they're heavy.
Well, I love what you said, that fat obscure your
sexual regions.
Yeah, it's like, it seems like such a dull statement, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's like, interesting. Well, it's like, as I'm hearing your recount of that, I can relate to like my journey on the reverse side, which is like, I remember when my marriage fell apart and that was ending, I couldn't eat. I stopped eating, and I actually lost weight. And I actually lost, I went from size 12 to size 4. And I have to tell you, I look really hot. But that's because we have that image, right? We're so ingrained to seeing size 4, size 6 as hot and beautiful rather than size 8 and 12. So I just want to own that first there,
Right.
But it's so interesting that whenever I'm in a relationship, I plump up. I'm now size 6 or 8 or something like that now. I just am much more comfortable, and I don't have so hard to date and all that stuff. So I always naturally plump up when I'm in relationship.
So what we're talking about is that we kind of have the opposite reactions. Whereas when I'm more steady when I'm in a relationship, and then when I feel that pressure of dating and really being sexual, then I gain weight, or I did when I was younger.
I love it. It's amazing, but it's related to food. It's just so interesting how and when I'm in a relationship, I have a very hard time to lose weight. I just can't. I just don't. I don't have any desire to lose weight. I just am comfortable. I just like my weight.
And see, when I'm in a relationship, then I have a place for that sexual energy to go, and I'm all over that, and I could care less about food.
Oh, that's so great.
It's the opposite. In fact, I've found that sexual energy and that really experiencing that is deeply nourishing.
Yeah.
That fills you up and feeds you on a whole different level.
Yeah. Well, that's so interesting, Pat, because, to be honest, I have to say, you're right, because as I'm more comfortable in my relationship, I actually have less sex.
Exactly.
Right? I have more layers of and cushion around me, and I don't need sex as much. And when I was single, I had a lot more sex.
Right.
How interesting.
Definitely, there's a connection there.
Yeah. So why were you afraid of your sex drive when you were younger?
Well, I think it's because, for instance, I knew from a very early age that I was a bad girl. And, and of course, there's all this pressure to be a good girl. But I knew that I had tremendous sexual interest and energy and passion.
Yeah.
And, it just didn't seem to be a good way to experience that in the culture that I grew up in. And even going through college, it just was a very uncomfortable fit for me. And so I think I feared it a lot. I think I thought I would lose control. I think the big story I told myself in those days was, if you find somebody who can really meet your sexual energy on your level, you are going to lose control. And who knows what will happen, right?
Right.
And so that was one of those big themes in those days. After graduate school, I got involved in the film business. I have a film degree. And, boy, if you want to talk about a business that has a real hard-edged attitude about sex, there's a lot of objectification in that business. A lot of judgment and superficiality about body size and shape. So that was another whole layer of experience for me, being, treated as an object.
Wow.
And, so that's almost created another reason to go back into excess weight again, and I did. I gained a lot of weight in that business.
Well, I know, and that feels like a catch-22 on that one, because if you're skinny, then you're objectified for being, sexual and all that stuff, and if you're fat, then you're totally overlooked and undervalued and totally like not wanted. Right.
It's a really tough place to be for women, and it's becoming more tough, I think, for men as well. There's a lot more pressure on men to look a particular way and have a particular body type.
Yeah. I want to just slow us down for a second here. You said something, and I know what you meant, but I really, really wanted to highlight this, which is you said you knew for a long time ago that you were a quote-unquote bad girl. I wanted to just highlight that and say, on this show, we don't mean bad the way other people mean bad. You knew that you were sexually, you were in touch with your sexual energy, you were wanting more of that, and your sexual energy is like knocking on your door and wanting to come out and play with you. And what society considers that as inappropriate, or how you got into it with it and all that. I just wanted to I just don't want to condone or continue to use those kind of language on my show just to keep colluding what society call bad girls. I think you were a good girl, an awesome girl.
Well, I agree entirely, and I said it almost facetiously because that's the story that was in my head, was that it was bad. But now I look back and I think, oh my gosh, you were alive. You were alive and you were in touch and you were actually willing to look at it. Whereas, there was, I almost laugh at it now. But, I think that part of me was the alive part, and I don't consider it a force at all anymore.
Absolutely, right. Yeah. And I was so busy being, quote-unquote, the good girl, I completely cut off all of my sexual connection or anything. It's like I didn't have any sex. I was completely masculinized and, not in touch.
Well, those are the two choices, right? Those things. That's really the problem, is that there's only two choices, or we're raised with the idea that there's only two choices, and of course there's not. There's a whole range in between. Yeah.
And tell us about this whole place of sensualizing food.
Yeah, I don't sensualize food as much as some of my clients do, but I have clients that can almost have orgasm with food.
Really?
Yes, it's a very, very interesting thing. Think about how many seductions start with some type of food. Food, it sort of, once it's put in the mouth, it starts the wet process. It enlivens us. It gets our attention. It puts our attention in our mouth. But sensualizing food is just one of those many themes that has come apart or emerged from my coaching clients over the years. Some of them have very little actual sexual connection with human beings, but they have an enormous connection to food. They dream about it. They plan about it. They spend a great deal of energy looking for it, creating it, finding it. They just have a tremendous sensual connection to eating and to food, and that's their turn on in life.
Wow, that is amazing. It's so interesting because for me, when it comes to food, it's more about hoarding. I was born, in Vietnam, and all this poverty patterns and all this. For me, it's more about not enough and hoarding and undoing what I didn't get to have when I was a child, rather than sensualizing food and use that as a turn-on mechanism. I just find that so fascinating.
Yeah, that's a big connection for people. There's a Saturday Night Live skit with Tina Fey where she goes to bed with a huge human-shaped, human-sized brownie.
Oh wow!
And all she does is eat this brownie through the skit, but it's very, very funny. And yet that is very true for a lot of people. The food has become their primary sexual partner.
Oh wow!
Or the substitution for it. So it's a very interesting connection that does happen.
Yeah, I wish I had Ann Betts here, and because she does work with connecting with the brain and what does the brain do and firing, because it just feels like, oh my gosh, there's a clear connection somehow physiologically or whatever the word is, with the brain and the food and the sex thing together.
Well, we know, for instance, that the same chemicals that are produced in the brain that give you that euphoric feeling, they're very similar when they're produced by orgasm. They're very similar when they're produced by caffeine or for sugar. There's lots of any addictive substance. Even a lot of the drugs, they produce a certain chemical in the brain that produces that euphoric feeling. And that's what people are going for. The route that they get there may be very, very different.
Right.
But everybody wants that feeling.
Yeah. So it's like, it sounds like addiction, like lots of yummy, compelling addiction. And I find about addiction is that when I say the word addiction, I usually have this reaction of like, I'm not addicted. I'm not like people. I don't need AA and and all that
right
stuff. But as I learn to come closer to that word addiction, it's fascinating. Like, I'm addicted to my computer. I'm addicted to my pattern of working so much. Let's talk about addiction about food. I don't think I have addiction with food. So maybe after we talk about it, I'll realize I have some addiction to food.
Well, I think the use of the word addiction is kind of a tricky one. Most of the therapeutic models will tell you that addiction is continuing to do something which you know is detrimental to yourself. So in that sense, the word addiction doesn't really apply to a lot of things, right? If it's detrimental to yourself, and yet you continue to do it.
It is detrimental. We just we don't make that connection to the detrimental, right?
So am I addicted to sex if I love to have sex, enjoy the feeling of it, and is that detrimental to me?
No, that's good to you. That's healthy.
But there's going to be a line, right? There's going to be a line where you cross over and you're just pursuing a behavior and it's getting in the way of the rest of your life, or it's somehow detrimental to you. So that's
right. So if you're having sex and you're walking away at the end of sex feeling alive and well and full and full, turning you into full, then I think it's good. When you're having sex and then you're left with more hunger, more self-doubt, more self-detriment, more, low self-esteem and all that stuff, then no, that's not good sex.
Exactly. That's when you have more need, right?
Exactly.
More a need and desire that can't be fulfilled.
Yeah, and you went into sex from a craving place rather than an equal exchange and an equal consciousness place of really like wanting to share this experience to cultivate yourself. That's a different outcome than if you come in because you use sex to fill up some insecurities that you have.
Right.
So then this addiction. So continue to do something. I love that mission. It's so simple. Continue to do something that you know is detrimental to you.
Right.
And yet you can stop.
Mhm.
And then so food addiction. Yeah. Do we know that action is detrimental to us? Right?
Well, again, there's a line at some point there because a certain amount of food is fuel. A certain amount of food is nourishing. And then there's a point where you cross that line and it's no longer needed by the body, but the mind is driving the behavior.
Yeah, and then with all the stuff that I'm learning now, too, about the kind of additives that are put into processed food, it kind of numbs out our brain's capacity to recognize when we're full, when we have enough, to just keep wanting more, with a big gulp Coke size, that stuff that numbs our system out. So then we can't tell if it's detrimental anymore.
Exactly. So finding that line is really tricky. That's why alcoholics can say, well, I'm not going to drink at all. But someone who, every human needs to eat, so that line can be a very, very tricky thing to find.
Yeah. And then earlier, before we got on the show, you were telling me about living in the middle of the country of the United States and how that also play out. Tell them about that, Pat. It's so interesting.
Well, I've lived in a lot of places in the country. I've lived in the South, and I've lived in New York City, and I've lived in California. I now live in smack dab in the middle of the country in the Midwest, and I live in a fairly cold, long winter region in Wisconsin, and I just find that there's a lot of layering that people do here. They layer up with clothing. They layer up with fat layers. I think that Wisconsin is 10th on the list of all 50 states in terms of being the fattest or the most heavy state.
Yeah.
So there's lots of layering that starts to happen, and the emotions also get layered up. Most Midwesterners will tell you that they're hardworking, and they're very proud of their hardworking work ethic, and that they're not open emotionally. They'll tell you that right away. I hear people tell me all the time where I live, I'm not a touchy-feely person. Don't expect me to talk about that with you. So it's very interesting, and I just find, having lived in different places, that there's different attitudes about how much emotion you show, how much emotion you talk about, and what you reveal.
Yeah. And then that ties in with this whole topic of like, and so they go to food for comfort, food for the socialization part of too.
Yeah, there's a huge alcohol problem here. There's a lot of problems with OWIs and driving drunk and every
OWI
operating while intoxicated.
Okay. And my show listen to all over from all over the world, so I want to make sure people can understand the culture that we're coming from. This is like a state in the middle of the United States where it's landlocked. There's no water around. Well, there's some lakes around, but there's no water, and it gets really cold in the winter, and so people huddle in, they stay in, they have lots of layers of coats and eat. That's pretty much eat and watch TV, the games, right?
Right. Socialization is all around food and alcohol. And that's very, very rich and deep into the culture here.
Yeah. Yeah, I recently got a new client living in this area, and she was saying that she wanted to work with a sex coach, and she couldn't get anyone to talk sex with her. It's just too difficult, and so it's fascinating.
Well, it's been interesting for me, as I have gotten more and more in touch with my own sexual energy, and I've also been doing a lot of soul awareness healing. I'm really able, I think, at this point in my development, to see the energy of another human being. It's very interesting for me to go into a yoga class. I do teach yoga, and I can go into a yoga class, I can ground myself, and I can just look across the room, and I can see exactly who's in their energy and who isn't. I can see exactly who gets their second chakra and they understand their sexual energy and who doesn't. And so
what does that feel like?
It's very interesting because I think, again, in this area where people tend to kind of layer up and tampen down some of the emotions and their sexuality, I think that I'm seeing a lot of that in my classes. I'm seeing a lot of people who are disconnected from that sexual part of themselves.
And are there a correlation between skinny people and overweight people?
In terms of owning their sexuality, yes. Yeah, very definitely.
There is?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's the very thing that we're talking about. We're talking about, using food to control your impulses and your feelings, especially the sexual ones. So you tend to use food to control those. Then you're going to have, and many times, excess weight.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure that we're, I'm getting the depth of this, and I want to make sure we're not being misunderstood. I am so not advocating, all about you got to be skinny and sexy to have sex. That is so not what this conversation about.
No.
But I think something really important here about just gently looking at this and going, oh, is there a connection there? Is there a connection between food and our desire and our sex? If we substitute food for sex and then layer up and bulky up, it does clog our energy in our second chakra, which is, right where your stomach, right below your belly buttons, right in that area above your pubic bones, that whole area. The creative force, the sexual force lies in there.
Exactly.
And it gets mushed down with a lot of extra baggage.
Right. And I think I started to say this earlier, May. There are people that are overweight and totally own their bodies.
Yeah.
And there's a correlation there because they always own their sexuality, too. They're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And that is awesome.
I know. I see those people once in a while. Once a while back, I used to go to these very spiritual sex parties. I'll cop to it, and it's just and it was amazing to me to walk into an environment where people are open with their sexuality, and there would be several women really obese, just laying there, wide open and being served by men and all that. And I looked at that and I was just I couldn't breathe. I was like, oh my God, I saw where my level of development was, I could not be there if I, was anywhere near that size. And I just was admiring them. Yes.
And, I very definitely was not that person. Because I didn't have that connection, but it's about the owning. It's not about the size. It's about the owning.
Yeah.
Right? When you own that sexual energy, then you can be connected to that no matter what your physical size.
And we're starting to see more of that, too, in the media. We're seeing more fat actresses who are proud, are sexy, and are flaunting their sex. I mean, yes, a lot of that is acting and all that stuff, but still, it's good to have an image of that to inspire us. Yeah.
Very definitely. Yeah, we're not necessarily saying that you have to be thin in order to be sexually connected. No. Not at all. We're just saying the sexual connection is the point.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, that's the point.
So then you do these yoga classes and you see them, you can feel them. And what do they feel like? What's the difference in a sexually connected person? How do they feel different than others?
Well, you start to see some real division between lower and upper body. You start to see that their energy doesn't flow It gets stuck when it gets to the pelvis. It starts to get stuck, and they really have trouble in the middle parts of their body because that energy is not coming up all the way. And you start to see this discomfort. This is the painful part for me, is when people are discomfortable with their bodies. That's so hard. I know what that feels like from my own previous experience. And so you start to see that show up as well.
What does that feel like, Pat, from your own experience?
Well, I know that, when I was younger and I didn't have a clear, because I had no connection to my own body because it was so hidden and I didn't know what it really was at its essence.
Yeah.
I just felt completely disconnected from it, and I was really angry with my body for not being what I thought it should be. It was never Barbie,
Oh.
Even when I dieted down and I lost weight, I was still very curvy. I have a very small waist and wide hips and small shoulders, and I would find myself very angry and disappointed in it.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to own your body and to really get in touch with your energy when you have those feelings for your own body going on.
Yeah.
There's just no way to connect.
Well, let me just take a quick break, and then when we come back, I'd like us to talk about how do you start making peace with your body and food? How do you work your way through this thing? How do you pull things apart? Is that cool?
Yes.
Okay. Stay tuned.
Is your marriage or relationship in crisis? Where one partner wants to expand into their sex and bring scary changes to the relationship, while the other partner is dug in, protective, and saying, "No way in hell is this going to happen." May knows this place well, and she can help both sides. She is truly amazing. Learn more about her specialty, crisis coaching for couples and individuals, at sexliesandconsciousness.com.
We are back, and today I am talking with Pat Barone. Is it Barone or Barone?
Barone.
Pat Barone, on the subject of food and sex, this complicated relationship that intertwines for most of in one way or another. And so, Pat, tell us about, how did you start to find your way out? And what does finding your way out mean?
Well, I think that's a really big question. For me, I mentioned earlier that the person who is larger and totally owns their body is something that I really respect and admire, and that was not me. It wasn't. I guess in the beginning, I really wanted a connection to my body, and I really wanted a connection to myself. And in following that all through the years, I've healed on so many different levels. Family stuff and inherited ancestral stuff, and I've healed my body in terms of releasing weight. I've healed a lot of emotions along the way as well. I've become much more heart-centered and much more compassionate toward myself. But it's an interesting journey. It's really a journey.
Well, hang on a second, because some of the terms that you use, I understand because, we've been immersed in this world. But, I can just imagine people go, what? Family stuff, ancestral stuff? What? Right. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mentioned earlier that, I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like I didn't look a particular way. I felt like I didn't measure up. I felt inadequate. Those are things that you sort of inherit as you go through life. A lot of it's familial.
Yeah, it's like you were born into this thing, and how you are in the order of your family, how your parents treat you, what kind of messages you got as a child, what some incidents that may have happened that had that kind of penetrate into your system and made it into some big thing that you continue to relive over and over again.
Right.
And then you fill up the pain with food, and you don't even see the connection.
Right. And some of what you've learned is about food. Is that food can take care of you, and food can make you not think about your problems, and food can be a distractor, and food will solve everything. And we inherit all of these familial attitudes about food.
When you said that, it just had a light bulb just went ding for me just now. I'm like, oh my God, in my family, it's totally okay to eat and have food, but it's so not okay to talk about sex and have sex.
Right.
So go to food, not sex,
Yeah.
That's kind of how we distract ourselves.
It's the acceptable way, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the family stuff, right? And then the ancestral stuff, what's that?
Well, I do think that there's a lot of really subtle ways in which, we carry along some energies when we come into this life that we might not even know are there.
Yeah.
And I think that those energies play out in this life, and they do have effect even if we don't understand them.
Yeah. Sometimes when I dive into doing that kind of work, I didn't know. I don't ever go, oh, I'm going to do some ancestral stuff today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just be like, I've experienced some pain, and then I find someone who has some kind of healing modality, and I work with them, and then boom, it just suddenly at some moment it felt like, wait a minute, this feels beyond this lifetime. I can't explain it, but it was much bigger than what's here in this lifetime.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those negative energies need to be released in one way or another.
Yeah. So it's fascinating, and it's just such a woo-woo area, Like,
yes, it is.
That's trippy.
Well, in yoga, we also say that the familial and the ancestral things are hidden in the second chakra.
Oh, really?
In the hips, yeah.
Yes.
Those are nice places to hide things and to shove things back behind those great big hip bones, and and that's also a place where a lot of people carry a lot of extra weight.
Yeah. I had this one. I was in Mexico one time, and I had this healer. She looks like a massage therapist. The sign said massage therapist. I went in for a massage, and unknowingly she started working on my stomach area where most massage therapists ignore, like really dug in there, like in that nooks and crannies of those hips and those, tender areas that I didn't even know you could massage, right? Oh, God, it was incredible. I laughed, I cried, and I laughed, and I cried, and I released. And it wasn't just me, our whole group. We each lined up and went and did work with her, and every one of us came out like a new person because we dug out so much stuff.
Right. And if you've ever been to a yoga class, you'll notice that that's an area that gets folded a lot.
Yeah.
It gets compressed a lot. It gets opened a lot. You open from behind. You open from the front and camel. I mean, there's all of these poses are so much about the hip flexors and about that folding in and opening process.
Yeah. Awesome.
Absolutely.
And then what else did you do? So you did a bunch of personal growth work and yeah.
Yeah, at some point I knew, and I guess I can't explain this, but I knew that my body did not reflect who I really was.
Aww.
I knew that the extra weight I was carrying was dysfunctional. And the product of dysfunction.
Yeah.
And I understood that.
Yeah.
And I just committed myself 100% to addressing that in this lifetime.
Wow.
And so that's really the beginning of my journey, and I have never stopped.
That decision is so important.
Absolutely.
It's so important. I mean, I remember when I had my moment when it says, are you going to set us free or are you going to kill us off? Like, that was my sexual energy was talking to me, because I remember I was on the good girl track kind of thing, and it's like, are you going to set us free or are you going to kill us off? And I just, broke down crying because it was it was so honest, and I just couldn't lie to myself anymore.
Right. No, it's true. You become a truth teller after that, right?
Yeah.
You cannot tolerate the lies anymore.
Well, especially to yourself, darn it, you know? I mean, I can lie to
Absolutely.
other people, but I just can't lie to myself. And of course, now I see my own game.
Mhm. And when so much of it does reverberate around and it does become about your sexual energy and things like that, you have to go with it. You know, that's what goes up.
Yeah.
That's what goes up.
And I know this is a really crazy, obvious statement, but for some reason, it is so true for all of us, that the thought of working on our sexual energy and our body is so frightening, just absolutely frozen, scary, with so much unknown and so much shame just like lay all over it. So that's why we eat and we go unconscious and we run and we do all sorts of crazy things to it, you know.
Right.
And so I just wanted to like say that to anyone who's listening. It's like, I know, and I'm sure you know too, but it's a scary area, and kind of like hold out invisible hands. You know, it's okay to look here. It's okay to look, and when you do, you'll find so much beauty and joy out of it.
Mhm. I think that you're right, and I think that it's really true that you have to take that layer of shame off. That's something that's been put on by society or culture or, you know, attitudes.
Yeah.
And when you take that off, you know, that allows you to really see what's going on.
Yeah.
And that is so, so important because it isn't just sexual. It's your essence.
Right.
It's your energy. It's how you are being in the world.
How did you take yours? How did you begin to take yours off? And how do you continue to take it off?
Yeah, I think I began, again, you know, this process of getting really honest with myself, of losing the weight, of realizing there's a deeper connection here to myself that I've never had before.
Yeah.
And I didn't know where it was leading, and I didn't know that there was such a strong connection to the sexuality.
Yeah.
But once I got in there, I started to realize, and as I started to take off the negativities and just release some of those negative energies and the shame, you know, negative things, when I talk about negative things, I mean things like shame and blaming and diminishing, lack of power. You know, when you start to deal with all of those little issues and you do really get in touch with yourself, then an immediacy starts to happen. You start to see who you really are. You start to connect. You start to be who you are.
Yeah.
Instead of having all of those attitudes on top of it. I'm not really sure that's making sense. But it's once you feel it, once you are connected to that energy, it starts to grow. It starts to build inside you. It's like in yoga we call it Kundalini energy. When it starts to come into your body, you cannot deny it.
Yeah.
It's so strong, it's so powerful, and it grows and grows and expands, and it's so loving, so pleasurable, so energetic that at that point you never would turn your back on it.
Yeah. So it's really actually really simple. It's simple. It's complicated but simple. I don't know how those two can exist, but they do. So the simplicity of this is that decision, that moment where you spoke about where you got to a place where you're like, you know what? This does not reflect who I am in this lifetime. I am no longer satisfied with this condition with myself. I want to change, and I am willing to invest the rest of my life into this and turn this around. Right? When you make that decision, that's when you're allowing for that kundalini or that energy or that whatever, that feel good to start. And it will just be like a fire that will start burning and picking up speed and getting bigger and bigger. You actually don't have to do much. Once you decide, things will start coming to you that will help you.
Yes, absolutely.
And all you have to do is keep saying yes. Keep saying yes. Keep saying yes. Don't get scared and go back in the hole.
Right, just notice. Just be aware and notice. It'll take you wherever you want to go.
Yeah. And the teachers will just show up right in front of you, even if you live in the middle of the country and you say something to help you, right?
Absolutely. It's not hard at all because, again, that connection is what's important. It's kind of like putting your stake down in the ground and saying, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
This is my life, and it's important. And I'm going to pay attention to precisely what's happening inside me.
Yeah. So what's your most recent discovery of, oh, gosh, here's another layer of shame that I didn't know I had?
For me?
Yeah.
A layer of shame. Well, I think that one of the more recent things that I've noticed is that I do have all of this energy now, and people notice it.
Yeah.
It's interesting who doesn't, who's totally in their blinders, but it's interesting that who notices it.
Yeah.
And I think that I had a little piece of shame about wanting people to notice it.
Oh.
Which is, it's kind of a dichotomy because I didn't ever want to be just an object.
Yeah.
That's something that I was, kind of railing against when I worked in the film business, was being objectified.
Yeah.
And yet, I realized I did want to be noticed sexually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's different because being noticed sexually is actually being noticed for your particular energy.
Yes.
Not just for the shape of your body or something like that. It's that energy that you want. That's the hit you want.
Mm. Well, for me, around that, it's like I've gotten to a point now where I'm totally okay with that. I mean, like, I was so resentful and resistant of that whole thing. That's why I became a mechanical engineer when I was younger, like going the masculine route. I'm going to shut all that down, But over the last 10 years, I've opened it back up now, and it's just now, it's funny because now I can walk around feeling really sexy and looking really good, and I'm so grateful to get to see that part of me and to notice that on men's look around me. Yeah. And I don't care anymore if they looked at me and think I'm hot and sexy and all that, because I'm at peace with it. Even if they're objectifying me, it doesn't even bother me. I'm just like, yeah, go ahead. You can look at this and you can objectify as much as you want to. I know it's good. And I know it's key. That I know my energy is good and clean. It's good. And I mean, I even had said to people, I'm like, yeah, you can fantasize about me and jerk off if you want to. That's all right. It doesn't bother me. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm totally on board with you. I think what I'm trying to say is that now that I own the energy, I get it.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I thought it was just about the body because I didn't have the energy. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't have it in those days, so it freaked me out.
Yeah. So it's not like we're flaunting our body for the body and the ego thing, but there's something much deeper, a deeper understanding or connection to your sexual energy that then you can be okay with that.
Yeah, it's about that ownership piece again, Now that I own it, I have no problem at all. I can almost laugh about it.
Yeah.
And I think I might have mentioned to you, I had a situation, and your energy really will ping off of amazing. It just happens.
Yeah.
I had a situation where there's someone that I run across quite a bit in networking. I don't even think I know his name.
Right.
But he and I just kind of ping off of each other.
Yeah.
Right? And it's happened a few times. And there was a networking event a few weeks ago, and again, my energy has changed a lot.
Yeah.
And we had this little interchange, and I felt this incredible spark with this person.
Yeah.
I mean, you just knew it. You knew he recognized, oh, I got it now.
Yeah.
He sees it, that whole thing. Well, I ran into him again, and he said, I have to tell you something. Don't be mad at me. He said, after I saw you last time, I went home, I went to bed with my wife, but you were with me.
Woo!
Right?
Yeah.
Now, that would have freaked me out years ago.
And I'm sure it freaks out a lot of people listening to the show, too. And I'm right there with you that it's totally okay.
Yeah. Well, you know what I said to him? I got very close to him, and I said, did you have fun?
Yeah.
And he said, yes. And I said, did you experience pleasure? And he said, yes. And I said, I love it. I love it. And all I did was laugh and walk away.
Yeah.
And so, it's the ownership piece, really, May. That's what we're talking about, isn't it?
Right.
It's being grown up, and it's owning it, and it's also knowing that you put it out in the world, and that's your responsibility. Beyond that, what other people do with it is what they do with it.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
What they think, what they judge, whatever,
Yeah. And with that guy, I would totally encourage him to like, and did your wife know that I was in bed?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is she getting off of it? Because
Mm-hmm.
that would be just like what you just said. You know, what's in it for him? Like, hey, include me with your wife too. Don't hold us apart like that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so that make it good, make it wholesome. It's all good. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I think it was just so. I thought the coolest thing was that he wanted me to know.
yeah, and the bravery, and that you can stand there and have that conversation with him,
Mm-hmm.
and not go sideways and not be mad.
Yeah, and I could tell it was hard for him. He was embarrassed, but I was just in it, you know.
Blessings to him.
Yes.
Lots of fun things. So tell us a little bit about what you got coming up for people.
What I've got coming up? Well,
Yeah.
I continue to work in this area and develop it. I've been working in this area for about 10 years with other clients, and so I'm helping. It seems as though my clients right now are leaning toward understanding their male and their female energy,
Yeah.
understanding how they nourish themselves from those energies. You know, a lot of our culture, I think, is based on diets and rigidity and formulas and things like that, which is all male energy.
Yeah.
And I think that that approach works for men a whole lot better than it works for women.
Interesting.
So I'm working with that, and I've got a new course coming up called Divine Goddess Weight Loss, where we're actually going to get in there and work with the female energy to release weight. And leave some of the rigidity and some of the diet mentality behind.
And let's just give them a little taste of that. What is the male energy and what is the female energy?
Well, the male energy is very linear. It's very focused. It's goal-oriented. It's steps by steps. You know, it proceeds in a straightforward fashion. It's very focused.
Yeah.
And female energy is very multi-pointed. Opening and receptive. It's very connected to nourishing. And female hormones also change throughout the months. So it's not linear in that sense. You know, a male's hormonal panel, it stays pretty much the same throughout the month. So what we're going to be working with is, you know, what is it like to really be in your female energy? And what does that do to your appetite? How do you interpret that? What are your body cues for hunger? You know, a lot of the body cues for hunger are actually in the second chakra. It can be confusing. Right?
That is confusing.
That is very confusing. In fact, young girls, when they first become sexually viable, a lot of times misinterpret a lot of those cues for sexual awakening. They misinterpret those as hunger.
Yeah.
So there's a big connection there.
Wow.
So we're going to be looking at those kinds of things in the course, and we're going to be using, again, that female energy to release the weight.
Yeah.
And to be responsive to ourselves rather than put ourselves on a strict diet plan.
Right. Or shoot ourselves. Shoot.
Right, and then try to pull out all of the willpower to stay on it.
Right.
It rarely works out for women to be on those really strict and rigid diets, and underneath we naturally rebel against that.
Oh, that's so interesting. And this is not to say that only women have female energy and have male energy. It's just that in general, women tend to run more with the female energy and men tend to run more with the male energy. However, at work, because women have to work now, women actually run a lot of male energy.
Yes.
In our life, in our everyday, and we are not in touch with our female energy enough, and that's part of the confusion and the all mess up of our system.
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence at all that since women have risen in the workplace and have risen in career and began to make more and more money, become more and more driven career-wise, that they've also become more overweight.
Nice. And
I don't think that's a coincidence at all, because we many women are running through male energy rather than female.
Yeah. Well, they work more, they get fatter, and they have less sex.
Right.
What a cycle.
Well, I'm supposed to talk on the news this week, in town this week about that because, yeah, more and more of my clients are showing up really focused on career, really focused on family, really focused on the busyness of society, the social calendar. Oh, and yet it's so sad. They're absolutely depleted.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and just don't have that energy to take care of themselves and nurture themselves.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds like a really great workshop, Pat. How do they find out more about it?
It's on the website at paparone.com. It's PATDARONE.com. And it's called The Divine Goddess Weight Loss. And it's coming up starting November 6th.
Yay!
It's going to be fun. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I think so. I just love the depth and the width of what you bring both in weight loss and in sexuality and being a woman in this world. So I really appreciate what you had to say today.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me a place to share it, because I think that a lot of people, whenever I'm talking about it, a lot of people identify.
Yeah. And I'm just in touch with some hunger right now, just like, just to end the show, there's a wish that I'm feeling hungering for people around their weight and their sexuality. So maybe you and I can craft something together and our last wish or blessings out there,
Mm-hmm.
So for me, there's something about I wish for all of us, peace and acceptance of our sexuality. That we don't have to hide behind sex, and so that we don't have to reject our sexuality and then cover it all up with food and deny ourselves of this pleasure.
Mhm. Yes, that's a fantastic vision, isn't it?
Yeah.
That that women can, and men for that matter, can be so in touch with themselves and their sexual energy that food becomes food again. Right?
Yeah, that it becomes a real nutritious thing for us rather than sugar and high and fake stuff to keep us buoyant or something.
Right. It's a supportive, fuel. It's energy,
Yeah.
It's a positive thing, and the relationship is positive with food as well.
And I love that image of Tina Fey that you gave us earlier about going to bed with a life-size brownie. Right.
Yeah, that's definitely, you want that immediacy and that aliveness of being with a partner and living in your sexuality and then again, letting food be food.
And being a partner to yourself, I think that's part of the craving out there too, is that people feel like they have, because they're so hungry for a physical partner, that they reach for food. And the first place is you have to establish your relationship with yourself.
Right.
And make yourself your own best partner. Well, namaste, Pat. Thank you so much again for coming forth and sharing this subject and bringing this to my consciousness and to our audience.
Thank you, May.
Have a great week, everyone, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Oh, the next show that I have going on for us is with a woman named Andrea, and she's smack dab in the middle of her dating journey, waiting for Mr. Right and not willing to settle for anything less. And it's quite an very typical journey, very painful, and just so touching. So looking forward to talking with her next week. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and I'll talk to you soon.
Do you want more sex, lies, and consciousness? Access our archives at sexliesandconsciousness.com. While you're there, please leave your comments or suggestions for the show and participate in current SLC conversations with other listeners worldwide.